So I just wanted to start the class by thanking you all for coming today. It means a lot to me, especially having some different things going on where we had to change the class time. So I am really appreciative that you're all here today. And I want to remind you of a few things. One, you're all seated in the small space of my living room. So if you need to move forward or back a little bit during some of the poses to avoid hitting each other, we're all going to do our best because we have 4 of us squished in here. And if you ever feel like something is uncomfortable for you, listen to your body. It's okay. I know we have a couple people who are like haven't done yoga a lot or who are brand new, like first time potentially. And so also with different injuries, I have the benefit of not like in my normal world might be if I end up teaching yoga where I know you guys and I know you have some really sometimes severe injuries in certain parts of your bodies that you're working with. And so listen to your body. We do not want to do any harm here. That's not the point. So with that being said, we have all found ourselves kind of seated here on a blanket. I do kind of recommend that you kind of bring your bottom, like your tailbone area, toward the front of that blanket so that you can almost have a shifting of your hips a bit that can go down. If it's uncomfortable to bend your legs, it's okay to keep your legs forward. It's okay to keep your legs out, just depending on the different injuries you have and how you're showing up today. Be where it feels good for you. I am going to talk for just a minute or two before we get going. So the concentration point today is something we worked a lot on in our yoga teacher training this year, and it has to do with creating ease and stability in our bodies. And so to do that is actually a lot harder than you would think in some ways, I found. But it's creating a place where you are maximizing what you can do, and you're creating different alignment, utilizing all of your different muscle structures to hold your body up into where it should be in its natural form in a healthy way while moving through these postures and then breathing. So I'm going to remind you to breathe a lot through this, because if you can't breathe in the pose, come back out a little bit. You've gone too far. You always want to be able to breathe. That's the ease part that we're working with today. And the stability part is hopefully, I'll ask you at the end of the class personally, but hopefully you walk away with a little better sense of your body and how your muscles support your skeleton, because that's what they're doing. We're all a bag of bones. It's the Day of the Dead today, by the way. So, we're all skeleton and we're supported by these muscles. And so we're thinking about how do those activate so that we, not just when we're doing yoga. This practice makes my life anyway healthier when I'm even walking and pushing a grocery cart. I'm more safe and I'm more stable with my body, and that's why I love it. So with that, we are going to get going. Find yourself in whatever pose is comfortable to you for a seated posture, and we're just going to gently close the eyes or bring the eyes down a little bit and let the gaze become hazy. And we're just going to sit for a moment in a quiet way. And as you're sitting, start to deepen the breath a bit. Perhaps the breath starts to slow. And however you're sitting, there is still structure to this physical form we have, to this body that we live in, that we get to breathe in and breathe through. Find yourself present here in your body, landed wherever you landed today, however you're feeling right now. It's all right. It's a good place, and it's good that you're here. And as you start to deepen that breath a little bit, start to notice some things about the body and just the breathing. That as you take a big breath in, Perhaps the belly or the rib cage expands out. And as you exhale, everything deflates as the diaphragm relaxes and extends the lungs upward and the air exhales. Bringing some kind of a concentration to your breath. Perhaps just noticing is the inhale as long as your exhale. Is there a bit of a space between the breath before you exhale and before you inhale on each side? Perhaps making the breath not just two parts where we inhale and exhale, but we notice a space between where it's an inhale and almost a bit of a pause, an exhale, a pause, and another inhale. A few rounds of just noticing that as you inhale and exhale and feel those spaces between. Starting to gently open the eyes. Bring your hands to heart center. And if you would like, we're going to set an intention for today. And my intention, if you don't have one, I have an intention, and I want you to have your own, or you can have mine also. My intention is that our focus is on thinking about, as we move through these different postures, that we are creating stability in our body. And we're doing it with a sense of ease, that we breathe through it. So, any other intention you might bring today is always appreciated. So go ahead and drop the hands. And however you feel comfortable, it could be on your knees if you're seated, if you have your legs out, you could have your hands to the side. We're just going to start to bring a little bit of circles into our spine. So starting one direction or the other, it doesn't matter which way you go, but it's kind of like stirring the pot. So you can kind of think about it like lubricating those joints in your spine a little bit, getting it going. A little oil on the Tin Man. If you like, you can keep your spine straight, or another option that sometimes feels good is to really come forward and scoop back through the spine, hollowing out and pushing the chest forward, opening through the heart. Good, and whenever it feels good for you, go ahead and reverse the direction of that circle. Good, and starting to come back to center wherever you are. I actually am going to grab a couple pillows for people just in case it can help with some injuries that I have back here. At the yoga studio we use bolsters, but I have some pillows. So here's one for you, Aunt Michelle, just in case it feels good at any point to have a pillow. Okay, and we'll put one behind you guys. Sorry, Michael, this one doesn't have a pillowcase on it.
Oh, thank you.
That was the only one I had, but I kind of figured I should have thought of that. Okay.
I'm pretty.
So you probably don't need it, but you know, I didn't think you would really care.
Thank you.
Okay, so coming back to center here, we're going to plant one hand down into the earth. It can be your right or your left. And actually, before we do this, think about if you had a suction grippy hand. I want you all to look at your hands. Hands get arthritic, we use them a lot. They're one of our best tools we have as a human being. Put it out in front of you and start to make some just grippy things with it. Good. And now, can you do like a suction cup? Spread your hands, fingers wide. Put your hand down and kind of maintain some of that suction grip to the earth. We're gonna do some grounding work whenever we're thinking about our body parts on the earth. So we're thinking about right now this hand is making a connection point here to the earth. We're gonna bring some structure up through our spine, lifting. Shoulders might come a little bit back, potentially. And just kind of finding where does it feel like a neutral space where your body feels centered. Good, and on an inhale, we're going to lift the opposite arm up overhead. Good, and there's going to be some pressure into the earth below. Your head can go wherever feels comfortable. It might feel good to look down at your hand on the floor. Make sure you're bringing some pressure there. Potentially making sure that you have a little lift here through that rib cage that's extending toward the floor. We don't want it to cave, but to have structure. And breathing, remember we have ease here. So we breathe, and as we do that, potentially bringing a little bit more stretching through the rib cage on the extended arm side. Good, and on your next exhale, coming back down to the ground. Same thing, next hand, so grippy hand, fingers stretched, creating that good structure point where we are grounded with our hand. Sometimes also, just think about what's happening with your body. Is your arm locked? Is your elbow bent? Neither are necessarily bad, but we want support here. So we want alignment and support. So pressing as we inhale and lift our arm overhead. Perhaps this time doing something different with your head, just to see how it feels. Maybe look up toward the ceiling. See how that feels. Take a look at that upper arm. Is it bent? Is it straight? What's it doing? And whatever it's doing, just feel a bit of a lift come out of the shoulder blade area. Can get really upkept. And a huge stretch going on through these ribs. Keeping the breath coming in and out. And on your inhale, really breathing into the up arm ribs and still feeling structure through your down arm ribs. Good, and on your next exhale, bringing the arms down. Good. Okay, we're going to go into a twist, and I want to know, maybe, is it okay if I give you a little bit of adjustment, touch you a little bit? I just want to see if this would be more comfortable for your legs. So, because sometimes having something, we need structure, but yeah, especially with injuries and everything, it could be really helpful to not have to be guarding. So, okay, good. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna come into a little gentle seated twist. So it's fine if your legs are forward or bent, however you would like them. But we're gonna bring arms up overhead. We're gonna drop the left hand to the right knee. Left hand, right knee, and then just dropping the left hand back. Sorry, right hand back. And just feeling a gentle spinal twist. Think about what's happening with your pelvis bone here. Is it tilting back? Are you real hollowed and out through your tummy? Or can you push your spine a little bit straight by pushing your pelvis bone down? Great, come back up and lift on an inhale. And on an exhale, we're just gonna switch sides. Good. If it feels good, you can give a little bit of extra pull or torque with your arm, but you don't want to over pull. We're finding some ease here, that sense of balance still. And also a sense of lengthening through the spine. Like, imagine as if you had a string attached to the top of your head and it was pulling and lengthening your spine up toward the ceiling, toward the sky. Good, and back to arms overhead, and back to neutral. Okay, so we are going to do a little position change now, and we're actually going to come down to our back. So you can, however feels good to you, get rid of your blanket for a minute, but we will use it later, so set it off to the side somewhere. Okay, so making our way to our back, just start to feel, how does this feel different? Maybe shifting a bit with knees bent, like shift that lumbar spine a little bit. Feeling, how does it feel different when our body is on the floor, supported, versus when we were supporting our body when we were seated. In a lot of ways, it's easier to be on the floor with our body supported, but if we could think about what's happening in this position when we're either sitting or when we're standing, and have that musculature behind what we're doing to maintain the form, then it can help our bodies to stay safe. So we're going to do some gentle movements. Just lift up your feet if you're able and put your hands on your knees. It's okay to press that lower back in the floor, and we're going to start to just do some nice gentle circles with our knees. Either way that you want to start with is fine. Remembering to breathe, and sometimes you might notice, does it feel better to inhale or exhale as the knees come forward, and exhale or inhale as the knees move out? And go ahead and reverse directions whenever it feels good for you. Consider this a little bit of a massage for your lower back. It feels really nice. All right, when you kind of return to a central location, we're going to start to pull the legs apart. You might need to look a little bit or not, but your knees are going to go separate. So your knees are going to come out in their own circle, and they're going to make their own little movements out and in. Okay, if I help you a little bit?
Yeah.
I'll just kind of show you because it's hard for you to move. So they're just making little circles like this. But kind of put your hands here. Does it hurt? Oh, also another thing that is fine sometimes is to have some. Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And reverse directions, whichever way you're going with your knees. Keep them both coming in or out, but start to make them big so you can feel a little stretch in your groin. Finish up another one or two of these and find yourself back in center with your legs on the ground. And now your feet are actually going to come to the edges of your mat. So you have wide feet. Feel your feet come out all the way to the edges so that your knees are still bent knee, but the feet, I'll kind of try to show you in the air. The feet are bent, but the legs are wide. So if this was the mat here. Good. And we're going to windshield wiper our knees. So they're just going to start coming back and forth and giving some lubrication into those hip joints. This can feel very nice. Just loosening up that area. You can get kind of pent up in there. You find that everyone has different pains and different areas where their body is more flexible or less flexible. All of our bodies are different. So maybe this one doesn't really stretch too much for you. Maybe this one feels stiff, but no matter where you are, the important thing is that you're breathing into it and just being here. Bring some fluidity with your movement as you roll back and forth on your feet. Good, and let's go ahead and find our knees facing up toward the ceiling again. And we're going to do something called thread the needle. So this, if you haven't done it before, I think many of you have, but I'll kind of show you. It's where we're going to take our right leg first and place it over our left leg. Sorry, our right leg over our left knee. Good. And then we're just going to lift the bottom leg, the left leg up, as if you can. If this is enough of a stretch for you, it's okay to leave it down. And there's different spaces we can go with this. So we can lift up the left leg and we can hold behind the knee, like so. Or if it's more comfortable for you, you can hold in front of the knee. You can start to bring a little movement. We're kind of freeform here. If you like some movement back and forth to really get into that right hip, then bring some movement here. We're opening through the right hip now. Can you press your right knee away from your head, toward the wall, away from your head? Oh, I may come around and do a couple of adjustments if it's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it okay if I give you a little bit of an adjustment?
Sure.
Okay, so good. Let's move this one over a little bit. And then you're going to push the knee this way.
I can't really do that.
You don't have to. No,
Yeah.
but that's where you're working toward.
Okay.
Just so you know the direction
Right.
is to open through here.
Yeah.
Don't do it to where it hurts. You
Yeah, this
right?
is all I can
Can
do.
you breathe there? Remember, we want to breathe.
Yep.
You don't want to do it so much you can't breathe. So where is it comfortable? And if it's comfortable for you to hold your knee or not hold your knee,
It's okay to do this.
yeah. Would you like an adjustment?
Sure.
Okay. I think also for you a little more here. Do you like it, Mina? Is that good?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
Does it feel good? Can you breathe? I'll do it for you. Can you breathe into it though? And also tell me if you need less. Good. Okay. All right, go ahead. Let's switch sides. So we're going to put our feet back down, planted in center, or you can just swoop your leg around, whichever is comfortable for you. But you're going to now bring your, my right and left here. I think we're going to bring our
Left on
Okay.
top of the right.
left over the right. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys. Glad that you keep track. I'm bad enough with driving directions, yet alone yoga directions. And with that top foot, maybe think about flexing it a bit so that your toes are pointing toward your ankle. And think about what's happening with your lower back and your upper back. Can you relax into the ground? Can you let the earth support you as you breathe? Can you just be here a little bit? It's uncomfortable, but can you also be? Can I put a pillow under your head? I think it will be more comfortable maybe, but tell me if it is.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
like
better?
it.
Okay. Would you like an
My
adjustment?
hips are very
Michael,
tight.
would you like an adjustment or no?
Where do you see?
Just with the knee, just a little bit of maybe positioning.
Like-
Not that it's a lot, just This is working toward here, yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
Good.
This
No, you're
is,
good.
This is maxed
No,
out.
you're good. Nope.
My glute is maxed out.
Okay, perfect.
So if like I do this instead of put my hands behind my thigh, it's actually like I'm working the stretch.
No.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like this.
As long as you're feeling it, yep. It looks good.
Okay.
Okay, so when you're all ready, go ahead and bring your feet down, back to the ground. Can you find a little motion in that pelvis? Just maybe a little pelvic tilt here or there, even maybe a little shift back and forth, just to bring some neutrality back into your spine. Good. All right, so we are going to go ahead and do Supta Baddha Konasana, which is, if you don't know, I will show you. It's just laying where you are, pulling your heels up toward your bottom as much as you can, bringing your feet together and releasing your hips open. So we're laying down and our hips are open. If do your hips feel really tight? Some things that also maybe could help is bringing like a couple things here just to say you have a little structure to come into. What would it feel like if you bring a little motion there? Does it feel like it's stretching? Okay, good. Perfect. And just to where you feel like a good stretch, not too much. So even if that's too much, you can pull your hips back. So breathe into this, and as you are, again, feel the floor supporting underneath you. Just allowing those hips to open. One of our peak poses today, or my pose that I wanted to move toward with some of the motions we're doing now, with the different positions we're doing, is a tree pose later in the activity. And so this helps to open our hips and create some length. And so I want you to remember, how does it feel with your hips now? Because later we're going to be doing a version where we're standing. And in fact, why don't you go ahead and lengthen your right leg down. Just lengthen it straight. So this is like we're on the floor and we're kind of doing what's going to be generally a version of a tree pose. And so it's easier on the floor because gravity helps pull our hip open. And also gravity is supporting our body behind us. So can we potentially have a neutral spine where our spine has its normal curvatures? We're not trying to flatten our spines down or press anything, we're just being. And this is actually where we want to be when we're on the ground, but it's a lot easier on the floor. Go ahead and just make sure we do both sides. Go ahead and straighten the other leg and bend the other one, just so that you get a little practice on both sides. Take a couple breaths. Okay, so coming out of that, go ahead and whatever's easier for you to bend your knees or straighten your legs, but we're going to make our way up to sitting, and then we're going to make our way into a tabletop. So I like to personally have a little bit of cushion under my knees, but whatever feels good for your knees is what you should do for yours. So I like to have my blanket. Oh, I gave this one. Yeah. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I gave your blanket to Michelle for the other activities.
That's fine.
Okay. You don't use it? Okay. All right, so we are in a tabletop position, so what does this mean? I need to get better on my mat. So we're going to have our knees located under our hip joint when we look back. We're going to have our feet flat on the mat. On the thing. Let's do this for a second. Feels kind of good. Paddle your feet a little bit. Paddle those feet. So, feet here. Feet could be here, right? This is what we're moving away from, is trying to have feet flat. So pointed feet. And if they're not there, that's okay, but that's where you're moving toward. And this is where alignment comes in. Knee to hip, good. Hip to shoulder in alignment. Sucking in through the core. Sucking in through, like almost imagining that you're bringing your belly button up toward your spine. But then also, on the back side of your body, you don't want to pull up too far that you're pushing up or creating disalignment in your back spine. Again, that suction cup kind of a hand on the front where we have connection to the ground, and elbows are going to shift forward a little bit, almost you're rotating your elbows toward the front of the room. So that helps bring some stability here when we rotate the elbows. Okay,
Are
so
we not supposed to have our feet flat or?
you're doing it right.
Okay.
So we're gonna do some cat-cow positions at your own breathing, where a cat is a shape like this, like Halloween cat, and a cow is a shape like this, where we have our head forward and our bottom up, and an arch through the spine. So it's basically a flexed spine on the cat, and an arched spine on the cow. Move through some of these at your own leisure.
Where do you breathe in and where do you breathe out?
I recommend breathing in on the cat and out on the cow as the easiest from the physiologic standpoint, but really whatever feels good for you is okay. And if it's different, you could try both too and see which one feels better. But I'm glad you asked about breathing, because that's what we want to make sure we're doing through all of these things. So on the cow, when you're coming up, a couple things to remember. I'll tell you a couple about both, just keep moving through, but your head lifts, your heart lifts a bit. You're still pushing though into the ground. You're not losing that root connection with the earth. Our elbows are still moving and rotating forward. We're still thinking about where our hips aligning. And on the cat, our pelvis pulls in and up. We feel the shoulder blades retract downward. The head drops. And the spine flexes. This really gives some of that good Tin Man lubrication to our spine. Really good for your back. And I want you to kind of start to think about the awareness of where is your spine. Is it in a cat position or is it in a cow position? Because I am going to talk about that in some other postures that we're going to do later. Just thinking about, is your spine flexed in a cat or is it extended in a cow? Or do another round or two and then join back to tabletop. In this tabletop position, you want that neutral spine. That's the natural curvature of the spine. It's not flat. That's actually really hard to do. It's just where your spine naturally is curved. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and if you need to shake out your wrists a little bit, we're going to go ahead and come up to our feet. However is comfortable for you, however you need to make your way up. And you won't need your blanket for a moment. If you're getting a little warm like I am, you didn't take off a sweatshirt or anything.
I'm fine. I'm good now.
Okay, so we're gonna find ourselves standing in what is known as a mountain pose in yoga. So this is just actually finding that natural posture of our spine. So look down at feet. Find out where are your hips, where would your legs attach inside your leg, and where would your feet be about hip width apart. They say for most people it's around 2 fists. That's about hip distance apart. And then just be here. Start to feel your feet into the earth. Feel your toes, feel your heels, maybe start to sway and start to move. We're not trying to be still yet, we're just trying to move. Back and forth a little, up and down a little bit. Good. Can we bend our knees? Just a little and straighten. So ideally, we did kind of a cool practice in one of our yoga sessions with my teacher Renee, and she did a thing where you think about in this position that is your ankle bone and your knee joint and your hip joint and your shoulder joint and your ear tragus here in alignment. So when that happens, the natural curve of your spine can start to be where it is to create this magical, almost amazing body positioning wherein we don't need to do a lot with our muscles anymore. We can just be here. So for those of you who've been to yoga before, this is basically a standing shavasana. It's shavasana and standing, which for the rest of you who haven't been, you'll find out what shavasana is at the end. But it's a resting pose. And so this is a pose where you want the least amount of work to maintain correct alignment. So finding that place where you're neutral, where all of these things are lining up, and where you're not really having to work too much. It's actually kind of nice. So from here, we're going to do a few preparatory poses for some things we're going to go into. So go ahead and shift your weight onto your left foot, and I have my socks on. I'm going to take them off. Start to lift up your right toes and put them down. Just lift them and put them down. And do that a few times. And shifting weight into your right foot, and do the same on the other side. Lifting the toes and planting them down. And lift, and plant, and lift, and plant. And find yourself centered again. We're gonna do it on both feet hip distance apart. We're gonna lift all 10 toes. You're gonna spread them wide. Look at those piggies spread. Spread them out. Plant that big toe into the mat.
Two of my pigs are attached together.
That's okay, just fan them out as wide as you can. Mine attached too. I think a lot of people's do, but the point is that we're paying attention to them and we're working on them because they're really important for our entire stability. That's where our stability starts in some ways, is at the ground. The core is obviously important too. So planting our big toe down, and now see if you can have your big toe down and touch your pinky toe. Just tap it. Tap it. Good. Now, all 10 toes, relax for a minute, breathe. Can you leave your pinky toes down and lift up the big toe? Good. And do that a couple times. Just pinky toes down, lift it up, down, up, and down. And lift all one more time, splay them out, fan them out, and plant the big toe, and then fan those ones as wide as they're gonna get. Okay, good. That's a good plant right there, okay? We're seating ourselves into the ground here. All right, now, think about your heel also. There's something going on back here. So, find your center of gravity. Where do you feel centered between the, if our feet had 4 corners, like big toe, pinky toe, and a corner on each heel, where would the center be of that square? Where your weight is right in the middle. It's not too much forward or too much back. It's just perfectly aligned. Good. Now, I want you to, we're gonna again shift the weight. This is another great thing I learned from my yoga teacher, Dylan, at 3 Trees. So this is one of my favorite things for creating stability. One of those things where I think about all the time. It's when we're going about our day, doing whatever we're doing. We're standing, we're sitting, we're walking, whatever we're doing. We're not always thinking about what our body is doing, but our body might be doing some actually very unhealthy things. But when we're intentional about what is happening with our body, Newton's third law states for every action there is a equal and opposite reaction. So we can control a bit about where's the reaction going because we have weight, we have gravity, we have our body. We don't want our weight going into our knee joint, for example. That's a really bad place for it. We want our weight being held by our muscles. Like I said, Day of the Dead, muscles are holding us up. So having the hamstrings ignite and take part of our weight is a huge thing. So this is something we're going to work on through a chair pose, but I want us to do it a bit now. Think about if you were pushing a shovel into the ground with your right foot. Push the shovel down into the earth. Push it forcefully. Can you feel that when you push down with your heel, that your hamstring activate, back here. If you push down with your heel, can you guys feel that a little bit activate
Yes.
here? That is healthy. That is supporting your skeleton now. Now do it on the other side. Push it down. Push it down so that it activates here. Now not only is your quadriceps or your joints holding up this entire huge femur bone and all these heavy legs that attach to our pelvis, but you have a big muscle back here and it's doing some of the work. And the stability that comes from this is amazing, I think. So I think about it all the time now. So think about it, and now just sit down a little bit like you're sitting into a chair. Just a teensy little tiny chair, like you took a little seat with both legs, and now push back. Remember, every reaction equal and opposite. Our equal and opposite right now is we're gonna sit and then we're gonna push back like we're pushing both feet with a shovel with our heels. Can you feel the engagement? Okay, this is something to keep working on. I love it. It's probably one of my favorite things I've learned during yoga. Okay, so coming back here to your mountain pose or Tadasana in Sanskrit, we're gonna start to do just a little hinging of the joint. And then we're gonna move into a little bit of a flow work. But okay, so come into that space where you have that stability, where there's that engagement with the ground between pushing, and you have the hamstrings engaged. Also, this core is always engaging. We do talk about this a lot, but you wanna be suctioning in through these deep abdominal muscles, just a little bit of lift through your pelvic floor. These are things you'll have to work on for years. I am still not at all a master of them, but we're going to just come down. I'll show you first. We're gonna hinge down to wherever feels comfortable for you. But what I'm aiming for is that your spine does not start to do the cat. Remember the cat? We're not gonna do the cat. So if you start having a cat right here, stay here. What you want is the cow. So you want your bottom lifted here. The pelvis is tilting forward, bottom is lifted. Slight arch in the lower back. Doesn't need to be exaggerated, but we are not trying to have this. So if you move here, just stop wherever you are. And you might feel some stretching behind the legs. And tilt back up. And just do that at your own pace about 3 times. Wheel it down slowly, engage the legs, engage the hamstrings, push through that shovel into the earth, push, engage through the core, and lift back up. Engage the legs when you come up. The legs help you be stable. Breathe, that helps you have ease. One more time. Good, good, good. And back up. So I'm going to show you a little bit. I know a couple of you have definitely done a lot of yoga, and so you'll already know this, but we're just going to do a small flow. But for those of you who haven't, I'm just going to show you first so you know where we're heading. And also, I think while I'm showing this, it's an okay time to grab a block, potentially just in case you need one. If you know that your hands can touch the floor, I'm just going to get one for you, my dear. Okay, if you know your hands can touch the floor, no problem. Don't worry about it, but otherwise you might want a block. I'm just gonna go ahead and show this with a block. I think props are great. Like we call a block a prop. They just help us to keep in the correct alignment. So, going to just start in the mountain pose. And we're going to lift hands up into a staff pose. Just watch me first. And then we're going to dive down to the floor. If you want to touch the floor, but you can't do it with a straight leg like this, then bend the knees as much as you need to. Okay, that's fine. And we're probably going to do a little bit of dangle the first time, and then we're going to come up to a lift halfway. This is where we're trying to have that neutral spine, not the cat, the neutral. So if you have to be here, that's okay. And then we'll come back down halfway. And then we're going to go into this chair pose, which is the main one I want to show you. It's like you're digging both heels into the ground with a shovel, engaging the quadriceps, also engaging this core muscle and lifting the arms up, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect though, and then we'll come back up to stand. So we're going to do it a couple times. So everyone, arms up, forward fold, dive down. Go ahead and dangle, whatever feels good for you. Bend the knees, bend each side, bend the right leg, bend the left leg, if that feels good. Yeah, that's better. Good, and come to a halfway lift. Good, and forward fold again. Halfway lift. And up to chair pose. Utkatasana, also called fierce pose. So in this pose, you won't stay too long because it's really actually quite hard. You're gonna, remember, push down. Your legs are working. The front and the back of the legs are working. Our chest is lifted up. Arms straight, extending, lifting through those shoulder blades, engaging through the core, and lift all the way up. Good, that feels good. And hands down, back to mountain pose. Let's try one more time. We'll do it with a little bit more flow this time. So lift arms overhead, dive down, forward fold, halfway lift, forward fold, halfway lift, chair pose, staff pose, standing, arms overhead, mountain pose. Good. So from here, we're going to go into a few more little flow like that situation, but you can relax, be at ease. I'm going to show you a couple more things. So actually come to the tops of your mat, or at least so that you have some room to step backward. We're going to come into a warrior one. So starting by legs together or in mountain pose with them hip distance apart, either is fine. You're going to step your left leg back. Michelle, if you can, it's okay. Just do a baby one. Yeah, little baby one is okay. Good. On this one, a couple things. Okay. Front foot. Toes are forward. Knee, we're not going to bend it quite yet, but when we do, the knee is going to bend directly over the toes. If your knee starts coming far over the toes, you do not have a big enough stance, and you need to have a wider stance. Second, hips have two headlights on them. They face forward, they do not tilt. Headlights face forward on the hips. Shoulders as well. Shoulders have two headlights on them, they face forward. We're not tilting here, we're very square. The foot, therefore, we don't want it out. We can't have it completely forward. So it has a 45-degree angle, and you guys all look great with that. So we're gonna go ahead and bend that knee. Sometimes before we lift the arms up, just keep your hands on your hips because I really want you to think that your hips are facing forward. That's one of the harder parts here because you're usually, go ahead and do it, bend the knee. As you do it, remember the shovel pushing back up. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and we can descend down, but we're also going to be lifting back up. Give the lift back. That gives the stability. That's what brings the strength. Cheers going. Good. Come up. Is it hard or not hard?
I feel it.
Okay. I feel like all these are hard. So if it's not hard, then
I can't,
you can always
because of
push.
my hips. I can't really bend that very deep.
Oh yeah. So you can't bend your knee?
Well, I can a little bit.
Let's see. Can you push back? Can you bend and then push back? Watch mine. Bend and then push it back. Like the shovel into the earth back.
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel the hamstring here? Kind of you.
Mm-hmm.
With your hamstring? Push the heel.
It's,
Engaging. Good.
mm-hmm.
So that's the main part, is that we're engaging and that we're utilizing our muscles to support our skeletons. And everybody's body's different. Everybody has different injuries and different things. Let's just come back up to feet together and try the other side. So right foot back, left foot forward, front toes, check, forward, knee. It's gonna go, when we move it, it's gonna go over, facing straight, right? Hips, where are they?
Headlights.
Good, headlights, shoulders are
Headlights.
headlights. Okay, let's try. And as you go in, don't sink. This is what we don't want to see. We want to see stability coming down into the pose. And then once you're here, can you start to find a place where the balance of the weight between the back leg and the front leg is equal? I feel like that's hard to do, but that's what we should be moving toward in this pose.
I can tell that makes more stability.
It does, because you start to realize what's happening with your back leg. And can we go ahead and lift our shoulders, as our arms up rather, as we keep our shoulder headlights forward. Armpits might have the lights on them by now. Good. And let's come back to stand into mountain pose. All right, we're gonna step back into a warrior two. So for this, left foot back. And we don't wanna be on a rail, like a railroad line. You kind of want to stay with that hip distance apart so that your front foot is almost like as if your back foot was in that alignment where it had been before. Look at your back foot. You want the back foot parallel with your back mat. So if you don't know what I mean, look at my foot. It is going to be this line and this line should align perfectly.
I can't do that on my hip.
Okay, that's all right. You're moving toward it, right? And if it hurts, always listen to your body first, but that's the alignment of the pose. Okay, now hips, remember we were headlights before? This hip is actually gonna be like 45 degree. So we're gonna keep our hip, hip, I messed it up. Hips is gonna come toward the wall, this wall for you guys. So go ahead and even face your chest that way for a minute. Our chest won't end up that way, but think about squaring or having your whole body move toward that wall. Hips open. Good. Now we're going to lift the arms. Lift up through the pelvic floor. Lift up through the spine, the crown of the head, bringing the weight equally between the front and back body, bending through that front knee, hopefully the knee ending up ideally around over the ankle bone, and also still doing its work. This should hurt, this burns. This is not a comfortable pose for almost anyone. Good, and go ahead and come back, feet together. All right, we're gonna try the other side. So, go ahead and bring the, whoa. Bring your right foot back, left foot forward. And remember, just alignment here, we're going to have front foot faces forward. Check your back foot. You want it where? To the back of the mat.
To the mat.
Parallel.
End of the mat.
Back of the mat. You got it. Okay. Hips. They're going to be open toward now the opposite wall, right? So think about those hips really opening. This is a great hip opener stretch. You can really feel a nice opening through your hips as you start to push your knees away from center. So your front knee is working this direction. Mm-hmm. Good. Knee working. I know you have the hip thing, but your knee's working that way. Knee is working this way a bit. Okay. Good. And go ahead and lift the arms up. Beautiful warrior. Warrior twos. I'm just watching you all now. Be beautiful warriors. Good. Lifting up through the crown. Weight is equal in the front and the back leg. Breathe. And come to stand. Good job, everyone. Okay, we're gonna do a side angle pose. And then after that, we're gonna put some of this into a little mini flow like we did with the lifts and everything, okay? So, back to your mountain poses with your feet hip distance apart. We're going to come into that warrior two. So, left leg back, foot goes where?
Parallel to the mat, end of the mat.
Good. Where do our hips go?
Forward to the wall.
Good. Perfect. Where does our knee point?
Over
the ankle.
Forward, and leg is over the ankle.
Good. So it's really pushing when we feel that. We're going to bend that knee. What are we going to do? We're going to counteract that, right? Have some pressure back so we're not sinking into the knee joint and causing any knee issues. So push back a bit. Arms up. Okay, from here, we're just going to edge forward and edge back. Good. We're going to hinge as if someone's pulling your arm forward and if someone pulled your arm back up. Let's do it one more time. Hinge. This time, bend your elbow, drop it to your knee. And your arm can either come up, overhead. Remember to breathe. Plant that foot down, ground through the core, lift. Extend through the arm if you like. Sometimes it feels good to lift the arm up into the ear, overhead. And back to warrior two. Staff pose to mountain pose. Warrior two, other side. Right foot back. Alignment, check your back foot. Check your front knee. Bend it. Hips are which way?
To the wall.
And opening, yeah? Okay, so warrior two arms. And we're gonna, as you do this, you might start to feel your tail pull back toward the back wall and then come back forward. So our arm is pulling forward, our back leg tail is pulling back because we're getting as extended as possible. We're still pressing and connecting and grounding into the earth. And we're always still breathing. We're gonna bend forward one more time. And this time we're gonna bend that elbow, extend that arm either up overhead, or if you like it by your ear. Where do you look? Well, you can look up, you can look out toward the wall, you can look down. Just feel whatever feels comfortable for your head today. And don't forget that ground connection. Don't forget that core connection. Belly button pulling in toward the back spine. Creating almost your body is in a window pane right now. You're between two panes of glass where your body is perfectly stable. And back to warrior two. Inhale to staff pose and exhale to mountain. Good work. Okay, we're gonna put it in a flow. So we're gonna do each side, moving through those three poses, the warrior one, warrior two, side angle, and then back to a standing mountain, and then other side, okay? And I know this one's probably hard, so you can either, with the injury you have, I wouldn't push it. You can either just watch, or if you want to do little baby ones, just to kind of have the idea.
Yeah.
Whatever feels good for you. Okay, so we ready? We're going to be in our mountain pose and toward the front of our mats. Good. So we are going to start by placing our left foot back into warrior one. Feet. Good. Arms overhead. Good. We're going to transition by moving and rotating that foot out, bending the front knee more deeply, extending through the hips, pressing out through the right knee. That right knee is moving toward the back wall and giving a little counter pressure back, lifting through the core. Extend forward, side angle. Big breath into the side ribs. Back to warrior two. Warrior one. Headlights. Staff pose. And back to mountain. Stepping back, other side. Warrior one. Hips, laser beamed, straight ahead, shoulders ahead, warrior one, arms up. Transition into warrior two. The foot position changes, the hips open, hinge forward, side angle. Breathe into the ribs. Warrior two. Back to warrior one. Staff pose standing. And mountain pose. All right, good work. We made it through our flows. Okay, we're actually now gonna make our way to the ground again. So however feels comfortable for you. Oh, oops, sorry, I almost forgot a whole thing. We're gonna do our tree pose. How could I almost forget that? So grab your block. I want to make sure everyone uses a prop just as part of my classwork. So whether you need it or not, I'm just gonna ask everyone to use it. I'm gonna help you with yours a little bit. Okay, put your feet apart. Put that right between them, good. Okay, so I want you to put your blocks between your feet. Okay, so remember, we got to practice our beautiful tree pose on the ground before, and now we're gonna practice being beautiful trees standing up. So it's autumn time, it's always one of my favorite times for watching all the trees turn colors. So it's kind of a good image to bear in mind that the trees change, and our trees might change. Like sometimes your tree might be really stable and you're super grounded and you can do it, and other days your tree might be swaying in the wind of life. So I do want to use the block today, and we'll try it without also, but to start with, I do think that the props are nice because you're not having to think always about the balance part. We're thinking about our body position and that stability and the ease, which was one of my goals today. So start kind of in a basic mountain-esque pose with the block between our legs where we're rooted down, right? And we're finding that state of balance. And then shift the weight into the right foot. Fan those toes a little. Remember some of these things we did before. Remember we have 4 points to our foot. We're grounded on top of it. We're balanced here. Our crown is lifted. And breathe. And we're going to start to just gently lift our left toes. If you feel like this is not good or at all scary, Michelle, do not feel like you have to do it. Michael, is it okay if you try using it for my learning? Thank you. So we'll do it, don't worry, we're gonna do the harder. We'll do the harder version, but for now, it's not the point to get your leg up. The point is just to ground your leg. Okay. So the point is more of our root leg. Think about the trees, which luckily we have all these beautiful trees right outside. Think about how the roots reach down and that we are grounding through this base leg here. And that groundedness reaches up into our core, stabilizes through our shoulders. And if you like, you can bring your arms up overhead into a tree, or you can keep them at heart center, or down, different ways. Beautiful, beautiful trees. Okay, come out, and we're gonna do the other side. And then we will get to do option for harder tree. Shift the weight into the left side, grounding down, spreading the toes, remembering the 4 corner points. Remembering that counter pressure that we learned in the chair pose is also important. We're pulling all the parts that we learned today together, and we're gonna just go ahead and then lift that little right toe. If you want something a little harder, what you can think of is that you're not really barely touching it, it's just you have your little toe there, like a ballerina, but it's still on your point here, and we can have hands down, heart center, tall tree, pushing and counterbalancing. What are your hips doing? Are your hips splaying to either side or the other? Are you opening that knee how we opened in Warrior 2? Thinking about the knee moving a bit backward, a bit more sideways. Good, and coming down. So, I invite you to do whichever way that you want now. If you like the block, then keep the block. If you don't want the block, you can get rid of the block. I'm just gonna show for anybody that wanted to try different things, that different options for the pose when we do them. Again, one more time on both sides, are either feet down on the floor, feet on a block, like we had feet on the low ankle. As long as you do not have a problem where it is hurting your knee, and the point of this, by the way, we are pushing this side of the body and this side of the body together into a plumb line down the middle. We're pushing the sides of the body together to a midpoint. If that doesn't hurt, some people will teach that don't do this, but as long as it's not hurting and you feel safe, feel like it's okay, or you can bring your knee all the way up here as well. So whichever one that you want to do, we are working toward this becoming flush here. All right, so pick which tree you want, and we're gonna come back to a mountain. Stabilize, find that center of balance point. Take a big breath, shift the weight over into the right side, and come into your tree, whichever one you would like. Hands can can be however you want. And come out. If you need to stretch your foot, sometimes it can cramp a little bit. Give a little toe point down here, can sometimes be good. And shift over onto the left side. Take a breath and come into whichever form of tree you want, spreading through the feet, grounding, lifting up, feeling the crown pull up toward the ceiling, toward the sky. Feeling the point of your foot coming into center as your two sides of your body work in opposition to find a balance together, a balance point in perfection. Pressing out through the hip, the knee, and lifting through the heart. And coming out. Good. Trees, everyone. All right, so now we will make our way to the ground. I thought I didn't forget my peak pose. That would have been quite embarrassing. All right, so let's come to our bottoms, and we're going to do just a little bit, not quite a, what is called a boat pose, but we're gonna come to a seated with our legs in front. And could you use some help getting down in any way, shape, or form? How is it easiest for you to get down?
My stupid quad.
No, I know, you're doing okay. Is this hurting you, or are you all right? I can help you. Okay, do you want to sit on the block? Is that good?
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
Okay. Good work. Okay. So, with our legs out in front, we're going to do some of those cat-cows, but in kind of this boat type pose. So let's grab in front of our knees, and we're basically going to inhale, chest up, pull the belly button forward and the back ribs, back spine forward toward the knees. And then on your exhale, you're gonna do this at your own point, but on your exhales, you're just gonna turn into that cat and pull the belly button the opposite way back toward the spine, hunching in, feeling the shoulder blades and everything expand through the back spine. And we're gonna move through a few rounds of this at your own breath. So inhaling, on your inhales, you're gonna come forward, and on your exhales, go back. Just a nice way to kind of settle in after some of the work we did. Do one more round of each, and the next time that you come back, you're going to keep that position as you slowly engage those core muscles here and slowly vertebra by vertebra come down to your back. And yes, have support behind your head if you need it. Otherwise, we're going to do one of my favorite poses, which is the happy baby. So lift your feet up into the air and bend your knees and spread your legs out. You can grab your feet any which way you need or like. It could be on the outside of your feet or front of your feet. And you can either pull your feet in here, or you can open your feet wide. Happy babies do a lot of different things, so feel free to move in whatever way makes you feel good. Just bringing some motion through the legs, through the groin, the hips, the lower back. Sometimes even bringing a little motion through the shoulder blades as you move with your arms and legs. But just whatever feels good. Sometimes pedaling the legs to straight or to more bent can feel nice. Pulling the toes toward the nose. Okay, so if there's anything else that feels good for your body that you need before we come into our final resting pose, and before we wrap up, then feel free to do any of that. And otherwise, for those of you who have been to yoga, you know this last posture is called Shavasana. It's the resting pose, and it can be done in different ways. So depending, the traditional is just laying on the ground flat with the legs spread a bit. It's basically, like I said, that mountain pose but laying down. But sometimes it's nice to either have something under your head or something under your legs. Michelle, would you maybe like a blankie under your legs?
Yeah.
There. Is that high enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, and relax your palms down by your body. Feel your spine coming into alignment between your pelvis and the top of your head. If you have any more little jittery movements or anything that your body needs to do to feel calm, then feel free to move, coming into this place of resting. Coming into this place where it's a space we're thinking maybe about our breathing, coming in and out, releasing any thoughts as they come through as we can. Finding some stillness and just being. For a couple minutes. If you need to come out if it's not comfortable, it's okay. Starting to bring some awareness back, maybe deepening the breath a little more. Starting to move your fingers or your toes or your head or any other body part that feels like moving a little bit. Starting to wake up a little like you're waking up in the morning if you like to take your arms overhead or stretch a little bit. And then, as you're ready, roll to the side with the knees bent as an easy way to get up. I'll help you. I'll show you. So, yeah, you kind of, let me show you an easy way. So you're gonna roll. Is your arm hurting? You're gonna roll this over. Is this your rib?
Yeah.
So on your into whatever seated position is comfortable for you. And we're going to bring our hands to our heart centers. And we're going to complete our practice today with the sound of one Om together. And so on an inhale, we will all chant Om. And release the hands. Thank you so much for coming. Namaste to each of you. I really appreciate it so much. So much that you took your time to help me today.
Namaste, Chrissy.
Namaste
Namaste.
to you. Thank you. It was lovely.